Thank you, Ray. So yesterday morning, I decided to go for a little run and did that thing called the Riverbank Run. That was fun. The weather was beautiful, and it was a great time. It was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed doing that stuff. The thing that was really interesting about it, though, is from a technology standpoint, it blows my mind that I can have this thing on my wrist. And every single mile, that thing will tell me how fast I'm going. So it uses this thing called a GPS system, stands for Global Positioning System. And no matter where I'm at, I can be almost anywhere, and this thing will track me and tell me how far I'm going. Now, many of you have this on your phone. Almost everybody does these days. And when we pull it up, there's a ton of things that we can do with this GPS. It's just fascinating if you think about it from a technology standpoint. For example, it can tell you where you're at. Sometimes that's helpful, right? Especially when you're lost. It can show you what's around you, everything that's around you. It's helpful. It also helps you tell you where you're going. That's where most of us use it, right? We don't know where we're going. Does anybody look at a real map anymore? I don't know if half the people don't even know how to, I don't think they can read a map, right? So it helps you tell you where you go. And the other thing that's really cool about a GPS is if there's a problem, it'll let you know that there's a problem and you might want to go in a different direction, right? So this little thing that's on our phone is just absolutely incredible. And I thought to myself as I was thinking about this, I said, man, wouldn't it be cool if we had a spiritual GPS? I was thinking about calling it like God positioning system, right? I mean, and think about it for a minute. This thing would tell you where you're at. The system would show you everything that's around you. The system would explain to you how to get to a place when you didn't know how to get there. And it would also let you know if there's problems. Sounds pretty amazing, doesn't it? Well, here's the good news. The good news is every single one of us has that system. Now, that's the good news, right? So yippee, let's celebrate. Everybody has that system, but there's a problem. Most people, unfortunately, don't realize it. They don't. And what I want to talk about this morning is this thought or this idea that it exists, but there's some misunderstanding within your own GPS. So what is it that they don't understand? Well, it's been my own experience and observation that when all of a sudden you decide, hey, there's this thing that's called God out there, there's a spiritual journey I want to take, and it sounds like a lot of fun. Let's dive in, right? Let's go. And so you start learning a bunch of stuff. You start taking in information, and it's helpful. You start learning about different techniques and different processes and everything. But then what you don't realize is that there is actually something else that needs to be put in that equation. And that equation is you. My observation is people learn all this stuff, and then they take that book and they put it on the shelf, and they don't use the spiritual principles that we have, that Jesus taught us, that the Fillmores taught us, that the other masters that have walked this planet all taught us. Folks, there are a gajillion different books. There's a ton of different masters that have come down here to show us the way. There's more information, more processes, more things to do out there than we would have a whole lifetime to explain. But you know what? If you're not using any of them, then what good are they? Each and every one of us has our own work to do. And you can choose to do it or not. There's no judgment there. The good news is you're still loved. You're still appreciated. You're still needed. But just understand, it's kind of like God sitting back here going, hey, I'm willing to help you, but you've got your part that you need to do in this. And until you're willing to do that work, there's not much I can do. Yes, you can pray, you can beg, please, 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 please. How many people have been there, done that? We all have. We all have. That's just the truth. That's called this human journey where there's times when we figure it out and there's times when we don't. But when you really, really understand this walk, this journey, you understand that you have your own little part. And there's work to be done if it's important to you, if you want to grow spiritually and expand spiritually, if you want to walk like the Masters walked. The good news is they left a bunch of clues. They left a bunch of clues. And all we have to do is pay attention to them. But the question people forget to ask in this whole process is, what is mine to do, God? What's mine and what's yours? And here's the thing. When you ask that question, guess what? There will be an answer. But my question is, are you willing to listen for that answer? Are you willing to pay attention to see what that answer may be? Because here's the thing. All I'm going to share with you is it's different. It's different for everything. Why is it different? It has to be different because we're multidimensional beings, aren't we? Aren't we living in a physical body on a physical universe? Yes, we are. Isn't there a mental part of us that's out there doing what it's doing? Yes, it is. Don't we have a spiritual body and start playing with that? Yes. And there's people who are saying that there's way more dimensions than that. I kind of like to play with that stuff every now and then and talk about that kind of stuff. But we're multidimensional. So in every single moment, depending on what the circumstances are, I don't care if it's physical, mental, emotional, or spiritual, whatever it is, it's going to ask us to show up a little bit differently. And I'm telling you right now, I can put somebody right next to me. We can be in the exact same situation, the exact same circumstances, and what we are going to be guided to and shown what to do could be completely different. Because that's the way it is. That's the thing I love about the GPS, your spiritual GPS. It's kind of like your eye in the sky. It's taking in way more into consideration than you could ever imagine. Why? Because we're multidimensional beings. That's why. So it's just different. But no matter what, I hope it's one thing you understand. It's always there. It's always there. So one day Mahatma Gandhi was running to get on a train. And as he jumped onto the train, his shoe slipped off his foot. And though he tried to grab it, he ended up watching helplessly as it fell to the tracks. It's like, there it goes. What do you do, right? So what does he do? In that moment, doesn't even bat an eyelash. He quickly grabs his other shoe and he throws it to the one that just fell off. People were sitting around going, what are you doing? Why would you do something like that? And his response was really simple. He said, at least now if a poor person finds her way across my shoe, she'll come close to seeing its mate and then have a pair of shoes that she can wear. Gandhi, in the moment, in a flash of an instant, understood that what good is one shoe going to do somebody? And by the way, back in his time, a pair of shoes, a month worth of income to people in India, a month. But yet, Gandhi, connected to his own GPS, in the moment realized, what's the highest and greatest thing that I can do? How can I serve in this moment? And in a moment, he was given an answer. Take off your other shoe and throw it. Incredible. Another thing about the spiritual GPS thing I'm talking about. Your emotions are a part of this thing. But people don't realize that. Why? Well, for some of us, society tells us don't pay attention to our emotions. In other words, ignore your emotions or suppress your emotions, right? At least that's the way I was brought up and taught, especially in this culture, being a man. No, 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 no. That is not a good thing to be doing. And then on the other foot, the women are like, oh, it's too much, it's too much, it's too much. And so this whole emotional thing has been something that has been taught to be careful of. You can't be too much, you can't be too little, right? We got to be right dead in the center. And if we go either way, depending on who and what we are, then it's good or it's bad, right? Here's the thing. Your emotions, our emotions, are the key to knowing if you're on track or if we either need to do a little bit more or a little bit less. In other words, there's work that needs to be done. There's something that we need to look at. But no, what happens? What happens often is that something shows up and we get upset. And then what happens? What do we start doing immediately? Especially if it's another person involved or a situation that's involved or something like that. What do we start doing? Right? This person, this situation, this shouldn't be da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And we wind up getting upset. And then we just go along our day and we're upset. And what I'm going to challenge you on and tell you today is that those things are showing up in your life because they want your attention. They do. And if you could pause for a moment and do a few things that we're going to talk about in a second, I'm telling you, it can change your life if you're willing to do the work and pay attention. And instead of something coming up and you getting upset at something, going, wonder what this thing's doing in my life again and again and again. Because more than likely, if something's showing up, especially it's upsetting you emotionally, I'm going to bet a lot of money that it's probably not the first time that it showed up. It's probably something that's been showing up over and over and over again, and the truth is, it probably hasn't been dealt with. And that's probably why it keeps showing up over and over and over and over again, because you've never really dealt with it, right? Remember, when you find yourself getting upset, whether it's a little or a lot, it's a way of letting you know that you're off track and there's something you should be paying attention to. Specifically, pay attention to your thoughts. That's the things that you need to pay attention to. If you really boil down the message that Jesus taught, if you really boil down the Fillmores, if you really boil down the other master teachers, yes, for sure, you are one with the divine. Absolutely. The rest of it, mindset. What's going on right here? What is going on in here? Pay attention, because often it's keeping you off track, and it's misleading you down a path that's not going to help you. It's not. It's going to leave you stuck. I don't know if you've noticed this or not, but in society, we have a tendency to stay stuck a lot. Yeah? Anybody been there? Yeah. That's the way it is. So we stay stuck a lot, right? Then the next question is, well, what thoughts should I be paying attention to, Mike? Fair question, right? Here's my suggestion. Thoughts about who and what you are and who and what you are not. Those would be some good things to pay attention to. Thoughts about others and who someone else is or who someone else is not would be another place to kind of look at. Might not be a bad idea. Or thoughts about a situation and what it may be or what it may not be. That would be some really good thoughts to think about, just to kind of pay attention. What is going on up here? Again, what are we doing here? We're balancing what's God's to do in this moment and what's mine to do in this moment. We've got to have both of them, in order for it to work. Right? So to illustrate this point, because by the way, I'm not immune to this, in case anybody was wondering, in any way, shape, or form. So I go to log online to my bank account, and all of a sudden it's not letting me in. Whatever, I don't care. So I go and try and do it again. It's still not letting me in. Okay. Try it again for the third time. Well, now it's locked me out, right? So now I'm locked out, and I'm sitting there going, oh my God, I can't believe this. So I call up the bank. I get this person on their phone, and they start asking all the questions, right? So we got to ask this. We got to verify your name. We're going to verify your address. We're going to verify the last four of your social. We're going to verify. And it's like freaking 10 minutes. And I'm knocking them out. Boom, 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 right? I'm feeling really, 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 really good. And then all of a sudden, they ask me the one question. That one question. And it's a simple question that I'm sure when you guys hear this, you're going to laugh and go, Mike, how could you not know this? They asked me what my PIN on my debit card was. Have you ever had one of those moments where you just can't, it just isn't there? And the harder you try to think about it, there's no way it's showing up. And I'm having one of those moments. I just, for the life of me, cannot remember what this thing is. And this person is basically telling me, until you can give me that PIN, there's nothing I can do to help you. Ooh. Uh-oh. Houston, we have a problem. And all of a sudden, I'm not happy anymore. In fact, I'm, excuse my language, pissed. I'm mad. Okay, I'm going to need your name. Excuse me? Yeah, I want your name, your last name, and I want to talk to your supervisor right now. Whew, man. So go through all that. We get the supervisor on the phone, and guess what? Give me your PIN, or we're not doing anything. And I'm, oh man, I mean, I am mad. And I sit there and I am just boiling. And I finally have to go, well, they're not going to help me, so I hang up. But I am mad. So I sit there and I'm not happy about this in the moment, because now on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm about a 9.5. I'm really upset. And there's a part of me that's going, I don't really like this. I'm not really happy about this. This isn't a moment that I feel proud about, but in the same breath, I know that there's something there for me. Okay, that's a good start. And so for my practice, what I do in the first place is whenever an emotion shows up, I'm going to allow myself to just sit in it for about 5 minutes. So that's what I do. So this thing shows up, I'm mad, I'm not going to run from it, I'm not going to try and justify it, I'm not going to try to explain it, I'm not going to do anything, I'm just going to let myself experience what that emotion feels like in my body. I'm going to identify where it is, and if I can figure out what it is, I'll try to actually put a word or two into it in terms of what the experience is. For me, I'm really, really angry right now. I feel it in my solar plexus. It feels like anger. Good. Let's just sit there for a minute and feel that anger. So I allow myself that process. I allow myself the ability to feel that emotion. So then I sit there for a minute. And then I realize, you know, Mike, this isn't the first time this thing has happened to you. I've had the same type of experience happen several times throughout my lifetime, actually. So I knew that there was something there and it was wanting my attention, right? And then the thought came through to me. I said, well, isn't there another way? Can't I do this thing differently? And so my thought was, all right, God, I know you're here, even though it's blurry and I'm still mad and I'm still upset, but there's got to be a better way. Show me. What's here? What's mine to do? So the question, what is mine to do? And as I sat there for a few moments, all of a sudden the next thought that came up is, well, what do you want, Mike? What kind of a question is that? What do you mean, what do I want? I don't want this. That much I did know. And the word that came to my mind was love. I want love. In this moment, that's what I want, is love. And so I sat there for a few more moments, and then the next thing that I felt coming through was, well, what are you telling yourself right now? And I thought about it. In other words, what were my thoughts in that moment? This shouldn't be happening. So in other words, I'm arguing with reality. Right? I'm arguing with reality. This shouldn't be happening. Yeah, I know, Mike, but it is happening. Well, I don't care. It shouldn't be happening. Right? What they're doing is unfair. That was another thing I told me. What they're doing is unfair. And then the last thing I told myself was, they're unfairly punishing me. Okay? So watch this journey down this road. So I'm sitting there asking myself, well, in the first place, are any of these statements true? Any of them? Thought to myself, this shouldn't be happening. Well, again, it is happening, so that question's gone, right? What they're doing is unfair. Let me get this right. You're having somebody that was so out of it, they couldn't even remember what their password was to get in, and they can't remember what their PIN is. Are they really being unfair, or are they just doing their job? And thank God, and I'll finish the story in a minute, but thank God they did do their job. But the one that really got me, they are unfairly punishing me. Man, that one was like, and I'm sitting there going, what is going on with that one? What was going on with that one? Why is that one so strong for me? And when I finally got it, I was sitting there and I realized that the truth was this thing had happened over and over and over and over again my entire life. And it was showing me something that needed to be addressed that I just didn't take the time to figure out and to address it, right? When I was a kid growing up, I don't know how many people lived in this environment. I was taught to be seen and not to be heard. Anybody have one of those environments? A few of us did, right? I was the youngest of 4 kids. So, when something went wrong or somebody did something and they weren't supposed to do it, guess who was the one that wound up doing it, whether it was true or not? Moi. My older brothers and sister, I was the favorite thing that they could dump that stuff on. So guess what? It was often that I got in trouble, not because of something that I did, but because of something that they did, and they didn't want to get in trouble. And so therefore, as a small child, what would happen is I would be unfairly accused of doing things, and it used to make me really, really mad. Now, in the environment I grew up in, I just told you I couldn't say anything. I wasn't allowed to. Do you think there might be just a little bit of trauma around that whole issue and scenario? Maybe just a little? Maybe? Just a little. Yeah. So you got this little kid, this little boy, that basically is innocent, hasn't done anything, and he's being accused of all this stuff, and he can't say anything about it. And then I look at my life, and I look at how many times this same exact scenario has showed up again and again and again. Only when I went through it before, guess what I would do? Yanta, 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 yanta. How dare they? The stuff that we normally do. Because after all, this isn't about me. It's about them. How dare they do that? Might want to pay attention, Mike. Maybe this has nothing to do with the person at the bank. Maybe it has nothing to do with you not being able to remember your PIN. Maybe it's got something to do with the fact that you really wanted to finally heal something and let it go, but for whatever reason, you could never do it. There's no shame, there's no blame in that moment when you go the other route. None. It's just I never really sat down and did the work, as Byron Katie calls it. Right? I see this, I realize it, and I'm telling you the energy that came through it when I finally could connect the dots for the first time in my life, the first time in 58 years, I could finally see this. I lost it. What a gift to be able to finally heal something that's been sitting inside of me for a long time. But you know what? It required some time. It required energy. It required me caring enough and realizing that everything that's showing up in my life is really a gift to help me, not to hurt me, not to punish me. There isn't some old man up in the sky that's just sitting there going, hey, you screwed this up, so we're going to make that happen. You screwed this up, so we're going to make that happen. That's not the way that it works, folks. That's the old stuff. The new stuff is realizing who and what you are, and things are showing up in your life to help you, not to hurt you. That's what's going on, right? Now, I'm going to finish the rest of the story with you because the truth was what was happening. Somebody had hacked into our accounts. And it turned out to be a great big mess, and we just barely were able to stop everything that they were trying to do to all of our accounts. So thank God they asked me for my PIN. Thank God they wouldn't deal with me over the phone. Thank God they did their job, right? And so how perfect? Number one, I get a healing. Number two, our stuff is protected and safe and nothing happened to our stuff, right? Spiritual GPS, the eye in the sky, this thing that we all have allows us to move forward in life and can do the same exact thing for you that it did for me. If we're paying attention, if our intention is that I'm going to show up and do the best that I can, and whatever I need to do is going to be there in the moment because I'm going to pay attention and I'm going to trust. I'm going to trust this thing inside of me called my divinity, and I'm going to trust God. As long as I got those, I'm pretty good. We're good. Like really good, right? So I know some people go, well, yeah, great, Mike. What does that got to do with your divinity? Well, everything. Why? Because we're multidimensional. It's not always going to look like that, folks. It's not. Sometimes our body is going to ache, and there's going to be some pain, and there's going to be something that we should probably sit down and think about regarding your body. Sometimes there's mental stuff that's going on. There's all kinds of stuff going on at any given moment. And yet, no matter what, there's our GPS willing to help us as long as we remember who and what we are and we engage in it. We ask for its help. So pay attention to your emotions. Don't ignore them. They're there for a reason. They're there to help you, right? And I just want to talk about this idea of engagement, how important it is for you to engage in your own divinity, your own spirituality, your own way of dealing with what it's like to walk on this planet in these times. You have the ability to have access to this stuff, every single one of you. But not if you don't plug into it, right? We got to plug into it. Like, we got to go, yeah, there. Okay, boom, there it is. And it doesn't need to be this great big deal. You don't need to make a big fuss about it. A couple of breaths are the things that help me. Just stopping in the moment and taking a couple of deep breaths and reminding myself that no matter what's going on, that God's there. That whatever's showing up is there for a reason to help me, not to hurt me. And that the answers, whatever the answers need to be, are there. And that my only job is to get out of the way and quit that yant and get quiet. Right? So in the book, God Never Fails, Mary Cupperfleet says the following. Most of us rise above our difficulties through persistent small prayers rather than a soul-sweeping one. The turning of the moment is the important thing in this turning of our attention to God. The all-powerful, the all-indwelling, the ever-present God is the way that we connect. and find the solution to our problem. She goes on to say, the more often we do this, the more often we consciously connect. And the more often we consciously connect, then we become more and more like the divine, and we manifest perfection in mind, body, and affairs. That's not a bad gig, right? Not a bad gig, if you think about it. Perfection in mind, body, and spirit. How many people? Yeah, sign me up. I'm in. Let's go. Let's go do that, right? Have fun with it, right? In Matthew says, but you, when you pray, go into your inner room, close your door, and pray to the Mother, Father, God, who is in secret. And God, who sees what is done in secret, will reward you. For God knows what you need before you ask. God, the eye in the sky, the beautiful, loving, caring, compassionate, helpful God. Not the old one that I was taught, and a lot of people in this room were taught. Not that one. The one who genuinely cares. The one that loves you no matter what. The one that's there for you when you need help. It's just us understanding, well, how do we do that? What does this thing look like? How do we process this stuff, right? That's what it comes down to. We all have the ability to have this system that helps us. There's just a few things that need to happen in order for you to start using it. Number one, know that you have it. Oh, I got this thing? Yeah, you got this thing. Every single one of us has it. Number two, you have to engage in it. It's kind of like a light switch. It just doesn't turn on automatically when you walk into a room, for the most part. I know there are some that do that, but not for us. We need to engage it. And the way that you engage it is going to be different than the way that I engage it, or anybody else in this room or anybody else out there listening is going to engage it. It's going to be different. Trust me when I tell you it's worth the time and effort to go figure out what that looks like for you. And it doesn't need to take a lot of time, by the way. Some of you, my belief is, are pretty close anyways. Now it's just a matter of doing it on a more consistent basis and understanding the level in which you can really take advantage of this thing. And it has everything to do with your divinity. It has everything to do with your spiritual walk. It has everything to do with God. All of it. It seems funny to me, but as I really start to think about this, it's kind of like we put these things in buckets. Like we've got this spiritual bucket, and then we've got this physical bucket, and then we've got this emotional bucket, and this mental bucket. And in my mind, in my experience, in my expression, they're all combined. Because it's all about healing. It's all about having as much of an expression as I can possibly have with my divinity. And my observation has been the only thing that stops that or prevents it has got nothing to do with anything out here. It's got everything to do with what's going on in here and up here. And the more I work on those two things for me, the rest of it is able to fully engage more and more and more and more. That's what slows down the process. That's what stops the healing from taking place. But you know what the good news is? Is once you realize that, you will have an army behind you that's willing to step up and show up to help and support you. You are all beautiful. You are all loved. You are all needed. You are all heard. You are all divine. Don't ever let anybody, and when I say anybody, don't forget to include yourself. Don't ever let anybody tell you anything other than that. You're amazing. I am the luckiest guy in the world because I get to sit up here and see you, and I'm so blessed, and I could not be more grateful. I hope you have a fantastic week. God bless.